Welcome back YouTubers to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. If you're following right now, I'm AspieAnswersAll and I'm all about talking about mental health and awareness versus everything else in the package of that's all about health and awareness, versus also taking you all on a journey basically on my life story with Asperger's syndrome, with my struggles and everything else that comes with it in that package. Hopefully you'll get to know me more than just the diagnoses basically as I take you on this journey as well. And also on the uptake, I do some everyday support, advice and tips along the way of basically everyday situations that may arise in our life, and hopefully some of it based on my life experiences, training and everything else that will be beneficial to you. So no further ado guys, I want to thank you for supporting me, for the ones that are loyal to me and have been with me from the very beginning. So basically thank you for that. Without you guys I wouldn't be here. So yeah, and on further ado guys, as you know, at this current time I'm talking about the learning disability series, which is the dyslexia series, to try and finish up what I can basically for you all, so that you can gain a better understanding about all these different learning disabilities, and hopefully something with that you can learn from, be it if you're a teacher, parent, or just a person that you know that has this kind of form of condition, and that you can know the signs and symptoms versus how to actually help manage it with them, being that form of support. So this one is part 10 episode 1, basically based on the series of it, which is going to be called How to Teach a Dyslexic Child. As you know right now though, be aware, I'm no everyday Joe blog, so anything that I give to you as a form of tips and advice though, and you don't think it fits or isn't beneficial to you, or some of the tips and advice, be it managing certain everyday conditions, be it whatever it may be, and you feel uncomfortable or unsure about it, seek professional help or seek an opinion. It's all about hopefully creating a balance that we can hopefully also be engaging with one another and actually respecting each other's differences of opinion, and hopefully with all this in mind that I'll be of value to you. So, and no further ado guys, you've got to remember also a step by step to follow it, to make it easier for you guys to follow through these series that I've done so far. So, let's begin this. Dyslexia is a learning disability that causes an individual to struggle with reading and writing. It can also affect other areas of personal life: focus, memory skills, and organisation. As I said before previously in the piece, that there are many different types or subtypes of dyslexia, and some of it will affect people differently from others. It's all a matter of just, as I said, knowing how to manage it in the best way possible that will be well suited for that person. When you understand how to teach a dyslexic child, you can help build their self-awareness as well as their cognitive skills by using teaching methods with a multi-sensory approach. This will help them not only in the classroom but for the rest of their lives, like be it in their everyday living of at home or outside, hopefully in the community, as they continue to grow into adult form. So this one's basically, shall we say, method 1 of these, and this is like modifying your teaching methods with your child who has dyslexia. So these are tips and advice with it along the way. So number 1, utilize the multisensory structured language or MSL approach. What I mean here is, well, this is usually a gold standard kind of approach or method that is used for teaching children with dyslexia. It is also beneficial for all children, not just people with dyslexia of the children. MSL teaches phonemic awareness, phonics, comprehension, vocabulary, accuracy and fluency, along with writing and spelling. Students are encouraged to use all of their senses, as we know: touch, sight, movement and sound, as part of their learning processes. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear the sounds and recognize the sounds of it as the individual uses the sounds in a form of a word. A child that can identify that the words pat, park and pump all start with the same sound would be discriminate phonemic awareness. Phonics, however, is the relationship between letter and sounds. Knowing what sound the letter B makes, or that PH makes the sound as the letter T or F, shall we say, as an example of the phonics. You can receive MSL training and certification. The International Dyslexia Association and the Institute for Multisensory Education will provide information about training and certification requirements. So if you want to, you can research it up through Google and everything else. Visual cues can help individuals with dyslexia to understand written material. As I said before, different techniques can be similar to other learning disabilities, so bear with me on this if it sounds repetitive. I apologise in advance. Use colour on the blackboard or markboard. Write decimals or math problems in a different colour. Write in a colour other than red, as red carries a universally negative connotation towards the dyslexics. Write note cards. This provides something tangible for students to look at while also giving them something to hold on to. Having them read the note card out loud also engages their motor and auditory skills. You can make sand trays. Sand trays are simply like tray-like containers that contain sand or beans or even shaving cream. Students can use these to spell words or draw pictures in the sand. This engages their sense of touch. Incorporate certain fun activities into their learning time, which will encourage them to engage more with you in class and whatnot. But making things fun, obviously, in class while learning can enhance their development of learning and memory and everything else that comes with it. Games and other creative activities gets the dyslexic child more involved in the learning process, as similar to what I've just mentioned. This makes learning more fun and rewarding, and it gives them a sense of accomplishment and achievement of what they've done so far. You can use music, songs and chants to help students learn and remember certain rules if need be. Number 2. Be direct and explicit when teaching. Explicit teaching includes describing and modelling the skill, breaking down the skill into steps, as I said before. Providing clear instructions and feedback throughout the process, providing examples and demonstrations, clearly stating the purpose and reasoning behind that skill, and presenting that information in a logical order. This process is done until students has mastered that skill. You should not assume that student has any previous knowledge or understanding of that concept, however. This is one big mistake. If you are using explicit teaching to teach a child about the letter S, you should begin to clearly stating what he or she will be learning that day. You would then demonstrate the sound that the letter S makes and have them repeat it back to you. You would then model different words that begin with S and have them repeat the words out loud to you. You may also use songs again, chants or pictures of things that begin with the letter S. You should ask them to think some of the words that start with the letter S so it can expand their thinking process out loud. You would provide constructive feedback throughout this lesson as well. 3. Repeat yourself often. Since dyslexic children may struggle with short-term memory, it is challenging for them to remember what you said. So, remember to repeat the instructions, any key words and concepts, so the students are more likely to remember what you say, at least long enough to write it down also. When building on new skills, however, continue to incorporate previously learned information that they did previously in the last lesson. Repetition will help reinforce older skills and create a connection between these concepts that you've introduced in earlier. Number 4. Use diagnostic teaching. You should continue to assess how well a student understands what is being taught in the classroom. If something isn't clear, the skill should be retaught, however. This may be an ongoing process, but it will be well worth it in the end. Students with dyslexia often require more time and more intense instruction to learn a concept. If you wanted to teach children phonemic awareness, you might start by giving them some words and asking them to identify all the sounds in those words you've given them. You would note the strengths and weaknesses and then develop your lesson and teaching strategy based on that assessment. As you're teaching, you would provide correction and feedback by asking the child questions and noting any progress along the way. You may also conduct some small quizzes at the end of each day to monitor their progress also. When you feel the child has learned the skill, you would give them the original assessment and compare the results. If the child has mastered the skill, you would move on to something more difficult. If the child didn't master the skill, you would continue to teach that skill until it's set in concrete with them. Number 5. Use your time wisely. Dyslexic children often struggle with focusing. Other things may distract them, like many everyday distractions, here's an example, a bird chirping around in their tree outside the window of the classroom, or the change of weather may cause them to be distracted. Or they may have a hard time listening to a long-ass lecture or watching a lengthy video. Dyslexic children may also struggle with short-term memory, making it difficult for them to take notes or understand simple instructions. So tips and advice here for you all to understand is take your time. Do not forever rush a class lecture that you are producing to them. time, even though they say time is of the essence when it comes down to teaching students, regardless dyslexic or not, you got to accommodate for the ones that are dyslexic versus all these other learning disabilities that comes with it in that package. I find it sometimes unfair that sometimes some people with learning disabilities are left behind and they're excluded in the classroom, or they just get left forgotten. But more than that, exclusion versus inclusion part of my learning disabilities, it was just, learning disability series on this topic later on after I finish these series maybe. Give students time to copy anything written on the board. Make sure the dyslexic students understand you before moving on to another section. Incorporate short breaks regularly. As we know, it's important. A dyslexic child often struggles to sit for long periods of time, as well as I shared previously in the ADHD series. There's some of the children that has ADHD, they'll tend to fidget and they'll tend to easily get bored and all that. Take short breaks throughout the day to divide long lectures. You can also move from activity to activity. For example, lecture and game, back to lecture, followed by a learning activity. Another tip and advice is use appropriate time limits. It takes dyslexic children longer to complete the assignments than other students may have no problem completing it at all. Allow the dyslexic students more time to take exams and quizzes and to complete homework so they don't feel rushed. Or as another tip there is basically if you have enough time after school, sometimes I remember back in the days I had some after school programs to help me catch up to some of the lessons I had missed, or some lessons to give me some form of understanding of a material that was taught in that day or something, and hopefully the teacher will be patient enough or have the time to at least give me that time, an extra 30-45 minutes of their time to actually reinforce everything that was learned in that day before I go home, and hopefully just do it on my own accord, and then hopefully get my parents to participate in my homework back in the day when I was having these struggles. Number 6, stick to a daily routine. Schedules help dyslexic children know what to expect and what is coming up next. If possible, post your routine using both words and images on a classroom wall for students to refer to. Okay, tip here, your daily routine should also include a daily review of the previous information that was collected, gathered, and actually shared in the class. This will help the students connect previous lessons to the lesson you are currently teaching. Number 7, utilize other resources. Don't feel like you're the only teacher for a dyslexic student. There are several resources available to help dyslexic children learn, however. Seek out other teachers, dyslexic specialists, or tutors who have experience working with these students. Okay, also, bear in mind, you should also ask the child and the parents about their preferences, their learning styles, and the strengths and weaknesses of the student. Encourage peer tutoring. Peer resources and social support are probably one of the strongest resources you can offer to that child. Students can read aloud to each other, review notes, or conduct lab experiments together. Another different form of technology are now a great way to enhance learning. Games, word processors, voice activated software, and digital voice recording can be all very useful for a child with dyslexia. Number 8, consider developing an individual education plan, or as it's abbreviated out to, IEP. An IEP is a comprehensive plan that identifies the educational needs of the child, providing the specific recommendations as well as defining the specific curriculum adjustments into that program that you may have specially designed for the child. The IEP is a collective document to ensure that the school supports the needs of every student. This document will also make sure parents, teachers, counsellors in the school are on the same page. The IEP process is a long and complex one, but it is well worth it. If you're a parent, however, you should talk to someone at your child's school about starting this process. If you're a teacher, let the parents know that you think an IEP would be helpful to them. Last but not least, number 9, deal with the child's self-esteem and emotions. Many children with dyslexia will struggle with low self-esteem and self-confidence. They often feel that they are not smart as other students, or they may perceive themselves as, or they may be being perceived not by themselves, but actually from others, that they're being lazy or problem students or troublemakers or other labels that, as I said before, what they're being labelled as. Try to be as encouraging as possible and highlight the strengths of that student that they have as well, because it's obviously important to work with the strengths versus their weaknesses, and no matter what, that we should be able to keep the student happy as well as parents happy and everybody else happy in the classroom. Well, that basically ends the first piece of how to teach a dyslexic child. Give me the like for thumbs up for support for engagement. Feel free to comment below. Basically, feel free to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, AspieAnswersAll. Feel free to private message me on AspieAnswersAll or direct message me on YouTube if you feel like a rant or rave or just some other particular topics once I finish these series. Feel free to also subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, because like I said, I'm hoping to do it on the daily as soon as, hopefully once I settle back into the new place, even though like I said, these series should be finished in the next week and a bit once I'm settling in. So do what you love what you do. Thanks for your support so far, guys, and I'll see you all again soon. Have a great